Joining me now, Victoria Steele. She is a women's empowerment advocate and also running for the Arizona State Senate. She is asking the question in this, frankly, overwhelming news climate right now of sexual harassment. She's asking, now what? You know, Victoria, I think we're all in the same boat. We just keep seeing these reports come out every day, frankly, and it's like, well, what do you do from here?
Right.
If you're, the key point, if you're the average person, because we've seen obviously major dismissals at many major media companies, some that have us scratching your head, but
yes,
in the micro, it's like, what do I do in my own office?
I know. And one of the things that people first need to understand is this is pervasive. This isn't just Hollywood. It's not just Congress. It's not just the news media. It is everywhere. If you're a secretary, if you're a flight attendant, if you're a waiter, it's everywhere. And it happens to men too. It's usually about when someone who is in control of your job. So this is not about sexual harassment, ironically. It's not about sex. It has nothing to do with sex. It's about power and control. So someone who is in power, usually who has control over your paycheck, is taking advantage of you, is taking unfair advantage of you sexually, then that is a problem. And the reason that it's been able to go on forever is because it's been silenced. And now we have this situation where it's like we're having a scab be ripped off of a festering wound that's been really getting infected for a long time.
Right.
That's ugly, and it's really painful. And so
wait, but I want to take that, I want to dissect that, because another thing I see a lot in talking to people is they just don't want to open the can of worms. They don't want to make a situation worse. And ironically, by addressing this, they feel like they're actually going to be in a worse situation.
Hopefully, we have reached a tipping point. I believe that we are reaching a tipping point in that so many people have come forth. And, there's safety in numbers. Truthfully, I came out and told my general manager at a radio station I worked at back in the 1980s that, hey, this is happening. This is what my boss is doing in the newsroom, and he shouldn't be doing this. And I just want him to stop. I don't want him to be fired. I just want him to be stopped. And 2 weeks later, guess who got fired? Me. And that's the way it worked. But now we've got people in mass coming out and saying, hey, this has happened to me too. This gave us all a safe way to do this. So I've got lots of suggestions, so we can talk later about, what to do about,
Well, let's take your main ones though, because I think literally, I think that's what everyone is asking right now. And by the way, I want to make this clear. I've had a very similar situation happen to me. So it is
it is.
I can't talk to anyone that hasn't been like me too. And we've seen that on social media. But tell me your main, maybe one or two things that people can do. Okay, I'm in a situation, and I think a lot of the concern is, right, I'm in a situation, but I can't go to the vice president or the level that fired Matt Lauer. You know what I mean? I've got my middle manager. Where do I go? What do I do?
Here's what you do. First of all, unfortunately, it's going to take men to help us fix this problem. Right. So this is a guy problem, and this is caused by guys. And so guys have to fix this. And it's, not that there are no bad women. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying this is a man problem, and guys have to really take a huge part of fixing this problem, because most guys are not abusive. Most guys do not sexually harass people, but there are people who do. So it's going to take bystanders watching and seeing. And people generally know if someone's kind of creepy at work. So never let a woman be alone with
Right.
those people. Never let somebody who is vulnerable be around those people. When people are now, I think there are a lot of workplaces that are setting up policies to address sexual harassment in the workplace. So what do we do to prevent it and all of that? So there's several prongs. One is you need to have an outside independent place for people to be able to go to address their concerns, where they're going to be believed, and they're not going to face retribution or getting fired or humiliation for coming
A lot
forward.
of people, though, are afraid of HR because they feel like they're not really
Yes.
on their side.
Right. And I'm not saying HR, because HR is part of the organization. It's,
Right.
and sometimes it's a part of the problem, not always. But what you need to do is you need to have an outside independent person that you can go to, that the company has set up, that you will not face retaliation if you go to this outside independent person. So that is one thing. Another thing is bystanders. If bystanders are taught how to step in and how to say, hey, that joke you just made, dude, that was
Not right.
not cool. Now you're clearly, you're not saying you're not cool or you're gross and disgusting, but you're saying what you just said was kind of gross. That I don't think that's cool. I'm not down with that. Another thing that you can do is go to the woman who is being abused, or the person who is being harassed, and say, are you okay? I just saw what happened, in that last meeting, and are you okay with that? Is there any way that I can help you? So that they know they're not alone. Now, because so many of us have been used to this, it's almost like a badge of honor to be able to survive sexual harassment in the workplace and still get your job done, which is a shame. But the fact that you can say, hey, I saw that, they may say, oh, no, it's okay. I got it. It's cool. It's no problem. I'm not worried about him. But if you're convinced that there's something really nasty going on, you can make a report without giving that person's name. So
And that's the bystander, so that the individual doesn't feel as overwhelmed, right?
Right. It is so good to know that somebody else cares, that somebody else, if you're a flight attendant and you're being sexually harassed by somebody who is in a higher position, other people can keep you away from that person, to intervene. If you go on a lot of business trips and some of the abuse or some of the harassment happens outside of the office, then stand up for that person.
I've heard this term, and that's a very interesting point that you make, because I've heard this term many times related to security. See something, say something.
Yes.
And I think there's this culture, and it comes from, I think, high school, where it's like, I don't want to be the tattletale, but in this case,
Right.
I think we're beyond that.
You've got to. The only reason that this has been able to continue for so long is because of the veil of secrecy. But now that that's been ripped away, we can see who the bad guys are, and they need to stop. And so I think there are a lot of people out here right now that are really nervous. And I know one of the things that has bothered people is when you see people that you've held in such high esteem for so long, and it's like, oh my gosh, not him. Oh, come on.
Right.
That is such a disappointment. That's heartbreaking. Don't believe that they are all being pushed off of their pedestal. Now, we've put them up on that pedestal. We need to hold them accountable.
Right.
If they're falling off that pedestal, it may be because of their own actions. So we need to really don't go to what we've always historically gone to, and that's blaming the victim. Because women have been convinced, not people who are being abused, men and women. And I know a lot of men who have been on the receiving end of this treatment as well. And
Right.
it's humiliating. We do not want to be accused of sleeping our way to the top. We don't want to be accused of being something that we're not. And it's called, we now have a name for it, it's called slut shaming. So if you're raped, if you're sexually harassed, if you're abused, then people say, oh, well, it was the way she was dressed. I mean, did you see how she was dressed? What did she expect? Why was she in that room? That's all the victim blaming stuff.
Right.
And it's not okay. So, I think bystanders have a huge way of really helping. And we just cannot keep this secret anymore. I'm really glad it's secret. I also know that when you come forward and you tell your own story, if you come forward, not everybody needs to, but if you do, take care of yourself. Don't feel that you have to tell everything unless you're ready to, unless you want to. There's no requirement for people who are being abused to come forward. But if you do, I think there's now enough people who will say, okay, I believe you. So I think part of addressing the hashtag now what is hashtag I believe you and hashtag no more.
Two things I want to really just talk about before we run out of time. One is, and you alluded to this, of course,
Yes.
We're seeing the number. We're seeing that obviously harassment's happening, men harassing women, but like you said, women have harassed men. Like I said, obviously the reports are that the numbers are more men harassing women, at least that we have right now, but also race, gender identity, all these different things that people are dealing with in a social situation. They're being harassed in the workplace as well, and this advice applies to them too.
Yes, absolutely. And it's an even bigger problem with women of color and LGBTQ community members. This is really harder for a woman of color, and I say that being Native American. So, I know that it's even harder for people who are part of a minority group, whether that's a gender minority group or whatever. It's just harder for some people than it is for others. So if you can speak up, then do it. If you can help somebody else. Right now is the time for us to stand up together with one loud voice and say, this is not okay. We should not expect ourselves, our girlfriends, our boyfriends, our children, our daughters, our sons to be able to go to work and not be safe. We should expect that they can work, do their best work, and be safe at work. So it's going to take all of us speaking up. We have not heard the last of it. We're going to hear more. There will be more heads to roll on this, and that's okay. That really is okay. This is that balancing, and so we're going to hear it. And yes, we will hear an occasional person who lies.
And that's what I was going to get to too. There's always going to be a bad apple in the situation, so we're going to have people taking advantage of this too.
Yes, but do not let anybody spin this to say that this is not a problem. This is a huge problem. It's a problem that's been going on for a long time.
Right, and really what this comes down to is changing how humans interact in the workplace. We all have to stand up for each other.
That's right. We cannot keep this a secret. It's like child abuse or incest. If everybody says, don't say anything, nobody will believe you, then the people that are in control of your life are the powerful ones. And so that's why sexual harassment is about power and control. It's not about sex.
All right, very good. Victoria, thank you for giving us this insight. Hopefully we can stay in touch, and as
Thank you.
I worried how much more we're going to hear about this, but as these stories come out, hopefully we can talk some more and add some more perspective to it, okay?
All right, Paul, thank you.
If you found this post informative, please like, comment on, and share it. This post was crowdfunded, so if you like what we're doing, please consider sponsoring one or more posts so we can make more. Sign up using the URL on the screen.